Thursday morning of the second week of Lent. You can see I have my sweatshirt on, my Boone and Crockett sweatshirt, and I just took Lillian from her journey to the park where she leaves deposits for the Mother Nature. It's her present, you know what I mean. Anyway, it's interesting. Today's the 17th. I'm so tempted to talk about St. Patrick and St. Patrick's Day. Not so much St. Patrick. I don't know a thing about him, okay? The way I understand, he's just an Italian kid who got lost and ended up in Ireland. What can I say? I don't know. I'm making fun of my classmates who are very Irish in the order. This is a huge celebration on the East Coast where you have the predominant Catholic population is Irish Catholics, and this is a huge day, okay? I remember, I'll tell you a quick story and I'll leave you alone. I was in the marching band of Notre Dame High School, my high school, and this is 1959. You might be able to look this thing up because it was a day of celebration. Well, it was an interesting day. Made the New York Times, okay? So we were in New Haven, okay? You got to picture this. They're a long way from New York. Anyway, we're marching along. It was right after a blizzard, so it's one hell of a blizzard, okay? It's only a March blizzard can be in New England, okay? And we're marching along. We're going along. Cheer, cheer for all Notre Dame. Bang. We're going along, okay? Behind us was the girls' school, Sacred Heart Academy. And if you're from St. Louis, it's a sister school to Coriezo. Same sisters, okay? An elite high school. All right. And behind them were the state police. And they got to picture this. Okay? So we're marching on. We're as oblivious to the world around us, okay? We didn't even expect to have a parade. And it's huge on St. Patrick's Day, okay? Maybe the biggest parade of the year. Okay? We learned the next day from the front page of the New York Times and the New Haven Register, but the New York Times, what happened was a bunch of Yaleys, okay? We went right through the Yale campus, okay? I forget, it was Whitney Avenue or Whaley Avenue, one of those avenues, okay? These guys let loose with snowballs, and they pounded these poor girls, okay, with snowballs. Leave it to Yaleys, elitists that they are. They didn't have enough brains to know that every kid in my neighborhood would say, I don't think that's a good idea. Why? You might want to look and see who's with them. Right behind these girls were the state police. They broke rank, went after these guys and beat the crap out of them. Beat them up, and it made the New York Times. That was the first time there was a so-called student riot. In 1959, beat the you-know-what out of them. I met a guy years and years later, and I can't for the life of me remember today. He was one of those guys. And I said, well, yeah, he was at Yale at that time, and I said to him, I was in there. Yeah, he said, I was one of the guys who was throwing a snowball. I said, well, he said, beat us up. So when I think of St. Patrick's Day, I think of that miserable parade, freezing cold and snow. Our girls behind us getting snowballed and those guys getting the hell kicked out of them. I mean, they got beat up. Those cops wailed the daylights out of them. They should have. They had it coming. It's a good lesson in there. You want a moral lesson? Be careful who you pick on. It's not that they're so tough. They might just have the state police behind them, or a big brother, or a friend. I always think of it as the Frankie Coppola syndrome. I may not be tough, but my best friend Frankie is. Picking on me, actually picking on him, you will lose. You see, I couldn't do it, but he can, and he did. It's a great lesson in life. Don't go looking for trouble. It'll find you. Don't trust your muscle. You ain't got that much. And that happens to be Jeremiah here. Okay? Today's reading. Cursed is the man who trusts in human beings, his own muscle, who seeks his strength in flesh. Yeah, think you're tough? You think you're that tough? Okay. Whose heart turns away from the Lord, charity and kindness. You think you can throw your weight around? Throw it. But there's always somebody meaner and uglier than you are, and he's going to take you apart. That's street talk. The next line is absolutely true. You think you're so tough? You know what you really are? He says you're like a barren bush in the desert. Enjoys no change of season. You ain't going to last very long. But stands in a lava waste, a salt and empty earth. You lose. You think you're that tough? You're going to depend on all your own muscle? Go ahead. You will lose. Right? Blessed, on the other hand, is the man who trusts in the Lord, who trusts in virtue, trusts in goodness and in love, whose hope is in the Lord, who hopes in the beauty of love itself. He's like a tree planted besides the waters. To stretch it and stretches out its roots to the stream. It draws on life because it doesn't seek itself. It seeks the water of life. It trusts. And you see, it trusts, you almost say, trust the world around it, you see. Yeah. It fears not the heat when it comes. Its leaves stay green because it is nurtured. It is not afraid of the heat of life. It's not afraid of the traumas that come with life because it draws itself, right? Its leaves stay green because it flourishes in its virtue. Aristotle saw that long before. Well, not before, not before Jeremiah, roughly the same time, I would guess, a couple hundred years after Jeremiah, I think. Right? Virtue withstands the vicissitudes of life, its horror. Muscle doesn't. If you think you're strong, then you are weak. But if you find strength in the virtues, the great human virtues, the virtues that sustain human community, you will flourish even in the worst of times. You see, your strength lies from within you. You see, not as muscle, but in a sense as the gentility of the virtue drawing upon the goodness and beauty of life. Eh? More treacherous than all else is the human heart. Why is he right about that? Beyond remedy, who can understand it? The heart is treacherous because it seeks itself. Unless it is cultivated, is Aristotle, unless you are cultivated to love beyond yourself, and then you are like the tree near the water. You draw from the goodness and the richness of life. You don't exhaust it, you see. He said, I, the Lord, alone probe the mind and test the heart, to reward everyone according to his ways, according to his virtues, you see, according to the merits of his deeds. I alone seek into your heart. If your heart is loving and generous, I will reward you. But with what? The fullness of life itself. It isn't even God, it's life itself will reward you if you're generous of heart. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be powerful. You have to be loving. And with love, trust. And seek to seek to love well. To seek to love well. And not trust in power or wealth. But put your trust not in the God of life himself, you see. God who is immanent within life. And to seek to love well in life. And life, God through the life you live will reward you in your life because you will flourish. That's Aristotle. You will flourish in life, even in the most difficult and horrific of times. Because your virtues that are honed by life and infused by grace, give you the capacity not only to survive the vicissitudes of life, but to flourish. To flourish no matter what happens, to flourish. And I really mean that. When I think of when I teach my kids in class, especially when I teach Aristotle, since I'm a philosopher, I don't teach it theologically, I teach it philosophically. I said the virtues will lead to a flourishing life. If you follow the philosophies, the competitive, ruthless philosophies of Thomas Hobbes, for you yourself alone, you will die alone. You will live a lonely, miserable life, and you will die alone. But if you live virtuously and heroically, that's where the Christian gospel comes in. You'll be a tree planted near water. You will draw life from that water. And you will flourish in the seasons, whether it's hot, cold, it doesn't make any difference. You will flourish. There was a movie called Easy Rider, and it was in a sense, it was a critique of the culture of the 60s, the hippie culture. And the two characters are seeing people, these hippies, trying to grow plants in the wilderness, in the desert, and they had no water supply. You could see the futility. They were working in vain because they were cultivating the desert without water. Put a tree near water, a plant near water, and she will flourish. You could even think of the water of baptism. You draw from the grace of baptism to flourish in the community of love, the community of life, the community of the church. I really mean that. I teach that stuff for the kids. I said, it's up to you whether you want to live a flourishing, happy life or a miserably lonely life. You're going to get to choose it. You'll either choose to trust, love your beloveds, to trust God in your love, or you trust yourself, where you're going to go it alone. If you go it alone, you'll die alone. But if you give your heart to another, you trust love, you trust the other, trust life, and trust God, you will flourish.